One man. Goodbye. Hello, Heisman.
20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 45. There goes Davis. Oh, my God. Davis is going to run it all the way back. Auburn's going to win the football game.
They give it back now to the 30. They're down to the 20. All the band is out on the field. He's going to go into the end zone.
Four-man Alabama rush. Got him. Oh, no, they didn't. Oh, my gracious.
Yep.
How about that?
Trey, it is storm season, my friend. Tonight on the 3 Technique, we're playing Weatherman, giving you the forecast for upsets in the 2025 college football season here on the 3 Technique, a college football podcast at the intersection of the X's and O's and the Jimmies and the Joes, along with Trey Reeves. I'm Mitch Mason. Trey, it feels like every night at this point we get a severe thunderstorm warning. I don't know about you guys down in South Texas. I know you had some terrible weather with like all the hail and the wind that came through Austin. It's been a lot of thunderstorms and flooding up here in North Texas. And so you and I were talking about what to do on the show tonight, and we wanted to bring back one of our most popular segments from last year, which was Upsets to Watch. And we thought, you know what, 'tis the season. With all the storms going along, let's put a weatherman spin on it and give some good old conditions for when your team should be on upset alert. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Today has been beautiful weather for a change. We have had similar situations. I got some weird looks from other people in the neighborhood a couple weeks ago when I was throwing some padding on my truck when we got a severe thunderstorm heading our way, but sure. I was not about to take a bunch of hail damage like some of my neighbors might have. So we're ready for this. This is an exciting twist that you threw into this episode. We're watching the cap. We're going to see if the cap holds in some of these places, and we're going to channel our inner Pete Belkis here tonight. So I'm really excited about that.
That's right. Hey, we're just your weather guy. If you're going to be mad at us, if you're going to dispute this, please take it to the comment section on YouTube, on Twitter. But formal disclaimer, we are just your weather guy. All right. We're just reading the forecast and trying to keep
models.
That's right.
We've got some models that can kind of flesh this out a little bit,
right.
But
we are just passing the information along to you. Listen, if you want to get in your tornado shelter, please by all means, throw the radio on, get those spare batteries. If you want to keep doing what you're doing, if you're out in the yard and just not going to pay attention at all unless you see the twister coming down your neighborhood, also fine. Just be safe out there. So I think of this episode as a public service announcement to college football fandom. We compiled a list of, I'm not even going to try and count how many games. Oh, it's a lot. It's probably 20 to 30 games. And we tried to distill this episode down to just 8 of them. Now, on Twitter, we're probably going to post a number of these games because those tweets were fantastic. Got a lot of great conversation going on both sides of those games. We'll see if we end up doing more of these episodes, but we wanted to start with 8 for each. And, I looked down your list, and I got to say, the first game on your list, Trey, it caught me by surprise. So with that, I'll cede the floor to you, and I can't wait to see how you sell me on this one.
Well, we're going to start with just an advisory. This is not a watch. This is not a warning. This is, hey, conditions might develop here. And we just need to keep our eyes on Tallahassee, Florida in week 1 with Alabama coming to town. I know Florida State went 2-10 last year. I know the Mike Norvell, your Knowles coin.
Yep.
I hope you cashed out, my friend.
I did.
Okay, good. Because you might be needing to move into my guest room if you were still holding that Knowles coin for your future retirement plans. But, man, I just don't know. I feel like as a college football conscious, there's so many exciting games week 1. We talked about it on the road trip episode earlier this week. We have Texas at Ohio State. We have LSU at Clemson. We have some fun midweek matchups, right? Thursday and Friday night, the G5 is kind of taking center stage. Not a lot of people are talking about this game in Tallahassee because I think most people assume that Alabama is just going to roll in and romp the Seminoles. Anything you saw on the field from Florida State last year would back up that opinion. But has Alabama earned the right for us to just assume that they're going to roll into a hostile environment, probably an emotional environment, potentially with Lee Corso in the house with his last game day appearance. Maybe that's been rumored.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I'm just not ready to say. I looked this up. I think Bama's a 12.5-point favorite as we sit here in June. They're going to be starting a first-time starter at quarterback. They're going to have a lot of new pieces on both sides of the ball. And we saw them lose to inferior competition not once but twice on the road last year in the SEC. I know Vanderbilt and Oklahoma were both much better than Florida State last year, but it's not like they're going to play Samford or Southern on the road. They're going to Florida State, a team that has a lot of talented pieces. I'm just saying we need to not just Sharpie this in for Alabama in June. I think we need to pay attention to that game, and it could be closer than a lot of us think in the third quarter.
Sure. Maybe holding your weekend plans outdoors a little loosely with the advisory. You've got a backup plan, but we're not buying the extra cases of water. We're not
panic buying plywood and toilet paper, but we're watching the forecast. And this is like, I don't know, you guys are a little sheltered from this in DFW, but man, there are like 2-week models that come out. They're like predicting what might happen in the tropics 2 weeks from now. It's like things that are like in Africa right now and are going to cross the whole Atlantic Ocean. And one model out of 100 runs says, oh yeah, that's going to be a Category 4 hurricane. And of course it's going to be pointed right at Houston or New Orleans.
Yeah.
And somebody on Twitter always runs with it, and it just causes a firestorm. So we're not even getting that hyped up about this one, but we're just monitoring some situations. Conditions might be favorable, and just keep an eye on it. I'm just saying, like, don't Sharpie in Alabama week 1.
I think so much of that game is going to ride on the shoulders of Thomas Castellanos, right? What does he look like in this Florida State offense? You're going from an offense that was so well oiled with Jordan Travis, right? And was just mobile and very athletic, and they could hammer you on the ground, but Travis could also hit you over the top. Last year they lost that identity, right? And DJ Uiagalelei and then the backup parade after him just had no semblance of rhythm or expertise in that offense. Castellanos is a true wild card though, right? Like at his best, we've seen him be a difference maker at Boston College. And then he also got benched for the second half of the season and straight up quit on the team. Said, all right, I'm going to the transfer portal. So what does Mike Norvell and staff get out of him? I think will be so important. What does that defense look like? That defense 2 years ago was lights out and had a number of draft picks that came out of it. Last
year wasn't bad.
It wasn't bad, but it certainly wasn't opportunistic, right? And
sure.
it kind of felt like to let this hit home. It feels like a little bit similar to what our Texas Rangers are putting us through, where if the defense was a solid pitching staff, it was so unappreciated because the offense was pathetic. And then when the defense did have those moments where they slipped up, you're like, well, now we've got no chance in this game. That's what it felt like to watch Florida State last year. Like I'm thinking of the SMU game that I was in attendance for. Like once the Ponies started running and it was clear that FSU had no ability to stop them, I leaned over to my dad and was like, hey, I'm ready to go whenever you are. Like the writing is on the wall. I'd rather not get stuck on the highway here trying to get back home. So I think so much of it comes back to what Thomas Castellanos can do though. He's an X factor to me. And, Alabama, like you mentioned, they're going to be starting a first year quarterback, probably in Ty Simpson. Seems to be the popular pick out of Tuscaloosa right now. Ryan Grubb is back in the building for Alabama. So that offense should be as close to comfy as Ryan DeBoer has ever had as he reunites with his former offensive coordinator. But yeah, it's a lot of unknowns for week 1, especially. And yeah, I mean, the public's going to be hammering Alabama. I feel like everybody's going to be so scared to take Florida State, but you know what? That's why the advisory exists. So I like the pick. If you had to put like a percentage chance, like give me the rain forecast here. What are we looking at percentage chance that Florida State threatens in this game?
We'll do a typical Texas summer day. We'll do 20% chance of rain. And that means that it could happen. And when it does, if it does happen, it's going to come hard and heavy, right? Like
Sure.
we don't get like light little showers on 20% chance of rain day. If it
Sure.
happens, it's pouring very
Sure.
quickly and it comes out of nowhere.
Yeah, get off the golf course. Like hail might be coming, type deal. Did you know, by the way? And I learned this, I think, literally this year, when rain is in the forecast and they give you a percentage chance, it 100% is going to be raining. It's just a 20% chance of if you specifically are hit by it. I didn't realize that.
It is. Yes, it is based on the viewing area of the news service. So
That's wild.
It's 20% of that viewing area will receive rain.
Probably all of our Jimmys and Joes are like, wow, Mitch, how?
No, I mean,
welcome.
I was pretty. I think I was post college when I learned that, and I see it circling social media every now and then. And the general consensus is like, "Oh my god, I was today years old when I found this out."
Okay,
but it makes sense when you think about it.
That's how I felt too. Trey, I don't think my pick is going to surprise anybody. If you've been listening to the show, if you've been reading our Substack, our summer snippet series that I've been putting out, the American preview has not gone out, although your Mountain West preview part 1 just went out on Substack. So head on over 3techpod.substack if you would like to check that out. I had a delightful time reading about the first half of the Mountain West, and boy, it looks like it's going to be a fun conference. But let's come back to a conference that I'm currently in the middle of writing their preview right now. I have not been shy about forecasting a full-on warning, Trey, for Carter Finley Stadium. Week 1, NC State. We are on upset alert, high alert, as East Carolina comes to town. The Pirates under Blake Harrell just look reborn. They look like a completely new team. John David Baker is back running the offense. And after they fired Mike Houston at a 3-4 record, that team went from having no identity to being a whole different ball club that could compete for an American Conference title if given a span of 12 games. They've got Kattenhauser back at quarterback. The defense should be really, really salty. And they've got some fun weapons on offense. Offense averaged 32 points a game after the head coach change. It felt like John David Baker was really freed up to run his scheme. And other than the secondary for the Pirates, which is replacing quite a bit, Siobhan Ravel is obviously the big name that exits from that secondary. He's now a Dallas Cowboy, rehabbing that knee injury. But the secondary was really the only major glaring flaw in that Pirates defense last season. On the other side, I don't really know what to believe in with Dave Doran's ball club. Like CJ Bailey, he's a nice quarterback. But I need to see him take the step, right? He turned the ball over a couple times last year. They were 98th in scoring defense last season, and then they were dreadful at giving up the big play. 20, 30 yards specifically. They were like 98th, I think, in 20-plus yard plays downfield, and then we're getting towards 115, 120 the farther downfield you go. So an explosive offense on the road in a rivalry environment, trying to upset the apple cart week 1, not to mention they just beat NC State in the Military Bowl to conclude the season. It feels like all the conditions are present for a big one. Category 4, category 5 hurricane here on the coast. So this is one that I'm telling folks, head inland, board up the doors, board up the windows, find relatives to stay with, because this could be ugly.
Yeah, I love that we get this on a Thursday night, week 1. That's just going to be such great TV to kick off our week 1 slate there. And you took the words out of my mouth there at the end. This is a game that we just saw back in December, and East Carolina, didn't feel like a fluke when they beat NC State on a neutral field. Obviously going to NC State will be a little bit different. It'll be a big environment. There'll be plenty of Pirate fans there, though. And
sure.
This is one of those rivalry games that always seem to sneak up on the bigger team, right? Like it's that game that one side really sees it as a rivalry, the other side kind of sees it as a chore more than anything. And that's not meant to be a diss at ECU, but they have a nice little program. But NC State is not thinking of this in the same way they're thinking of North Carolina or Duke or
Sure.
some of their ACC rivals, right? So this is a prime opportunity. A little bit less so in week 1 because your guys are going to be amped up just to be hitting somebody in another colored jersey, but it's a prime opportunity for a motivation gap. And when you couple that with the talent gap not really being as far as it seems like it should be on paper, NC State, we're not really sure where the direction or the trajectory of their program is at this point. Really thought that they were going to have a high watermark year last year, and it just didn't materialize. I like the pick. I think this is going to be a really fun game on Thursday night that a lot of people are glued to because they're just looking at the names on the jerseys. You're not expecting the Pirates to necessarily be competitive.
Yeah, and I think, I'm going to keep beating this drum until I'm either right, and then, boy, you may never hear the end of it, or I'm wrong. And then, there are going to be plenty of receipts, so feel free to throw those in my face. But I feel like I'm going to come across as an NC State hater, and that's not the intention whatsoever. Like, I have no ill will towards the program, but I think I'm more disappointed than anything, right? We were projecting big things for NC State, and we were so excited to see Grayson McCall there last year, and then he gets hurt through no fault of his own, right? And the team was just listless the rest of the season, and it's felt like that championship window that we kind of felt like was open now for the last 2-3 seasons. Remember, a couple of years ago, I picked them to make the playoff. It's felt like that championship window has closed, and now I'm kind of stuck wondering what the direction of the program is, where they're pecking, where they rank in the pecking order of this new look ACC with SMU making the playoff last year. And yeah, East Carolina, I feel like is a force coming in the American. I think, to your point, I know NC State does not think of East Carolina like East Carolina thinks of NC State as a rival. The series, I believe, is very close, though. I think NC State only has like a 19-14 margin. It's very slim. So the Pirates have hung around with the Wolfpack historically, and Vegas doesn't believe in them. They're 12.5-point dogs on the road. I
saw
right
that.
now.
I was shocked by that.
That feels high. I looked at the NC State 2-deep projection just to make sure I'm not missing some explosive weapon. I guess folks are just saying CJ Bailey's going to take the next step, which if he does, congratulations to him. Like, that would be fantastic for the program. He's certainly got all the tools to do it. I'm just going to kind of ride the team I believe in more than a quarterback that I believe in. So there it is. I'm officially issuing the warning. Like I said, I would clear out of Dodge and get to higher ground.
Yeah, they're never going to escape the accusations that there's not, in fact, an East Carolina. But I think that
it's fair.
They'll do very well week 1. I think that'll be a fun one to watch.
All right. Now you're not straying far from week 1. You're identifying another game in week 2 that includes an ACC team. This was one I considered as well. I think this is going to be a good football game regardless.
I did not know this game was on the schedule until today. And I'm really excited about it already because it involves a team that everybody is talking about playing a game that no one is talking about on their schedule. I feel like I'm gonna issue a watch. We'll go up a notch. I'm not going to give a full on warning just yet because I'm really interested to see what the home team looks like in this one. Hopefully getting some kinks worked out week 1, but the Illinois Fighting Illini, everybody's darling in the college football media, everybody's trendy playoff pick to be this year's Indiana, even though it wouldn't really be Indiana because they won 9 games last year.
No,
but
that was a terrible quote.
Yeah. Illinois travels to Duke, who, if you recall, Mitch, won 9 games themselves in 2024. I feel like everybody has already forgotten that. They gave SMU all they could handle in Raleigh, Durham. Or it's not in Raleigh, Durham. It's in just Durham. So
Durham.
Shout out Durham. I don't know my geography of Tobacco Road, but this is a game for Illinois. It's sandwiched between 2 cupcakes. It's the second week of the year. It's going to be an early kick, noon Eastern. And they're playing a Duke team that, like I said, everybody has already forgotten. I feel like that they won 9 games last year. They lost the former Texas backup whose name is escaping me right now. Malik Murphy, thank you. They lost him in the portal, but picked up, I think, an upgrade in Darian Minza. I love that pickup in the portal. I was with all the options that I expected him to have, I was very surprised that Duke was able to land a guy that really broke out as a freshman at Tulane and gave some power conference teams all they could handle when he was running the show down there in New Orleans. So this is not going to be a pushover game for Illinois. This is a team that learned how to win last year. They played a lot of close games. No one even expected them to make a bowl, and Manny Diaz got them, again, to 9 wins. So everybody is looking at this Illinois schedule, and I'm sure Illinois, in the back of their minds, is looking at the conference slate, starting at Indiana, hosting Ohio State, going to Washington, going to Madison, Wisconsin late in the year. A lot of people are looking at that conference slate, seeing some favorable matchups, trying to find the wins there that gets Illinois to the playoff. This whole thing could be completely off the rails week 2 if they're not ready for Duke.
I think that's very possible. Duke shocked a lot of us, including myself last year. I was out on Duke. I just didn't feel like what they had coming back.
We didn't know Manny Diaz as a coach would be a positive either, but he seems to have found himself.
Yeah, I didn't think that the production that they had coming back was going to take a step up under Manny Diaz because of all the questions that we had with him. And listen, Diaz's track record as a defensive coordinator was amazing. As a head coach, not so much. And so you figured there were a lot of other teams in the conference that were going to be ahead of them in the power rankings. And Duke said, we don't care about any of that. So now, yeah, they have an upgrade at quarterback. I think Illinois certainly has all of the ingredients to be a very fundamentally sound football team, to shorten the game, although they passed the ball well last year as well. They just didn't turn it over a ton. The defense took a step forward. But going to Duke, it is not the easiest venue to play in now that Duke fans are filling it up, and they do create a nice little home atmosphere. I like having an eye on this game because, yeah, I think a lot of people are just penciling in Illinois is going to go on the road. They're going to win. Ho-hum. Definitely not sharping this one in there.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up right now. I know they lost to SMU last year. I'm trying to see if they've lost another home game since Mike Elko took over. It looks like they lost to SMU last year. They lost to Notre Dame in 2023.
In a
close one. Yeah, gave Notre Dame all they could handle and lost to North Carolina in Elko's first year at Duke. So that was a Drake May North Carolina as well, and they only lost 38-35. So they have played really, really tough at home ever since Mike Elko took over there. Manny Diaz has certainly continued that mantra as well. This is not going to be an easy game for the Fighting Illini, and it's going to be really interesting to see if, a lot of people have to remember, and this goes for Duke too, in 2024, there are going to be teams every single year that we just look at the record. And I realize I'm saying this about Duke as well, right? 9 wins. We're just going to look back at the record and maybe not remember who they played to get there, right? Illinois could be one of those teams in 2025. They had a great record. They were ranked for a good portion of the year, but with these unbalanced conference schedules, it's going to be really common that we have to actually go back and say, okay, did they actually beat anybody of consequence? Did they actually show that they deserve to be a borderline playoff contender? Because last year it was, wins at Nebraska. They beat Michigan team that was down, but anytime they went up a level in competition, didn't particularly go well for them. A 38-9 loss to Oregon, 21-7 against Penn State. I realize that I could say the same things about Duke when they upped in competition a little bit as well, but this is going to be a really good comparison game for both of these programs, and kind of like the home team, kind of like just leaning the home team in this one. Again, like I said, I didn't know this game existed until this morning, and I'm very excited to watch it week 2 now.
Yeah, it feels like at the bare minimum, you're probably, if you're betting this game, you're probably putting it on the home dog here in the Dukies. So yeah, I like the conditions for that one. Should be a close game if history tells us anything. I'm going to stay in week 2, Trey. I'm going to go to Louisville, Kentucky Is it still Papa John's Stadium, or did they rename it? I think they renamed it, didn't
I
they?
don't think they're allowed to call it Papa John's Stadium.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm pretty sure we renamed it. Apologies for not knowing that off the top of my head. But James Madison, talking about Dukies, the actual Dukes come to town to take on the Cardinals. We're gonna give this one an advisory, Trey. I'm gonna say have a backup plan, right? Don't if you're going out on the water fishing, maybe keep an eye towards the heavens, right? The last thing we want you to do is get stuck out in a squall.
It is L&N Stadium, by the way. I don't know what L&N stands for.
Yeah,
fill that in however you'd like.
It's like Daikin Stadium down in Houston. It's like you sell HVAC equipment. Okay, cool. JMU, they're extremely talented, Trey. We have a interview with the group of 5 guys coming out here in a week or 2, I guess, as this podcast hits. I've already recorded it. I'm going on vacation here in a week. And so that's going to be one of the episodes that drops while I'm gone. We talked about James Madison and how talented they are, how everything seems to be going according to plan for Bob Chesney. No, year 1 did not go according to some expectations. They kind of stubbed their toe in some really random spots. Then they lose Alonzo Barnett at the end of the year. He misses the bowl game. Folks didn't even think he'd be able to play this year with the severity of the knee injury. But there's a thought now that he's potentially going to be back. And we don't know exactly when he could be back. He was cleared for non-contact throwing in spring ball. Maybe by the time we get to fall camp, he's a little bit further along that progression. But no matter if Barnett's back or if they go with Matthew Sluka or Cameron Coleman, the quarterback from Richmond, Bob Chesney seems to have the ingredients that he is comfortable with. He made a decision this year to take talent from the D2, from the D3 level, from the FCS level, and go get kids that he was familiar with instead of going to get P4 transfers or just other D1 group of 5 guys. And so it is a high risk, maybe high reward situation where it feels like, okay, if we get up in the air and figure out the plane is built of paper mache, like this could not go great. The Sunbelt schedule that they have is full of potential landmines. But if it all works, Trey, this is a terrible spot for Louisville. Week 2, and you have one of the Sunbelt favorites, one of the playoff dark horses out of the G5. That's your non-conference game before you've really worked out all the kinks. You've got Miller Moss at quarterback, man. I don't know how much Miller Moss stock you have. My portfolio is empty of that particular ticker. Cardinals have to rebuild their O-line. I think they're going to have at least 3 new starters that are projected, and it's an entirely new secondary. We've been using our lads as a great projection tool, and it's just all orange for their secondary. They had to bring in so many new transfers to fill out that back end. I don't feel comfortable upgrading it to a watch quite yet because I don't know who's going to be QB1 for James Madison where we sit right now at the beginning of June. But boy, if Chesney can cook early in the season, this is what upsets are made of. This is the perfect, I think, recipe for a G5 team to go in and topple a ranked opponent.
Yeah, James Madison can score some freaking points, man. So if you are not ready defensively, I think Miller Moss can be really good in this Louisville system.
He can be.
But if you're not ready defensively, or if you're not ready to be in a full-on shootout, need I remind you that when James Madison went into Chapel Hill last year and scored 70 points on the Tar Heels. So if you do not have your ducks in a row, both offensively ready to be in a potential shootout and defensively to prevent said shootout, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think Louisville was necessarily known for preventing shootouts last year. I'm thinking back to that Miami game that was just defense optional. So yeah, Friday night, weird things happen. I think this is the quintessential spot for a team that's just not really ready. Do you have Louisville's schedule up in front of you?
I can pull it up real fast.
I think I can get there too, but I'm wondering who they have after James Madison. So they have a bye week in Bowling Green, so it's not necessarily like a look ahead spot.
No.
This is definitely the toughest game in their non-conference portion to open the season. But
This is we're still not totally sure what we have. We haven't been punched in the mouth yet, right? I mean, Eastern Kentucky, respect to the Colonels, but I don't know that we're going to be doing, a ton of. I don't think we're going to have a ton of adversity in week one. So this may be the first chance that we see this 2025 Louisville squad have to get off the mat a little bit, and I do wonder what that'll be like on a Friday night.
yeah, and like you said, quarterback questions for James Madison, that's obviously a big question, but I trust that coaching staff, man. They
Sure.
full of winners at the FCS level, and they showed last year they can compete with Power 5 competition. So I think that's a great spot to look at for an advisory, and you never want to go all in necessarily on a G5 over Power 5 upset, but
No.
this is definitely one to keep an eye on.
Now, you've got 2 more games in the Southeastern Conference. I'll actually let you hit these back to back and finish your slate off here. Both of these, listen, once you get into the SEC slate, it's a Twitter firestorm no matter who wins and who loses. These upsets would really send, at least the first one, would send a shockwave through the conference, and the second one would just, the message boards would melt down. So I'll let you pick which one you want to lead with.
We'll start with the Deep South Soldus rivalry because I think everybody is talking. There's a lot. I shouldn't say everybody. There's a lot of people talking about Auburn as a dark horse in the SEC this year. I don't know that I fully buy into that necessarily. I don't know that they can win an SEC championship. Their schedule is daunting in the first part. It does soften up after October 11th when they do play Georgia, but this is a game that I just feel like Auburn is due. I'm going to put a watch on it. Not an advisory. Like, I think there are some favorable conditions here. We've talked a lot about Auburn on this podcast this offseason. Go back and look at some of our episodes in the past if you want the full breakdown on what they look like. But the short of it is they were close in a lot of games last year, and they were kind of just competent quarterback play, you'd think, away from being a real contender in the SEC last year. And you got to think that Jackson Arnold can come in and hopefully give them some more competent quarterback play because, again, that looks like what they're maybe missing from last year. So this is kind of like I was saying with Alabama against Florida State. This is a Georgia team that I'm wondering if we're still giving too much benefit of the doubt to for previous iterations of itself, because Georgia last year played a lot of close games, didn't have the offense and defense clicking at the same time very often, and got into spots, especially on the road, where they really got in trouble. So Auburn is going to be coming off of a bye here. Georgia, before this game, has Alabama and Kentucky back-to-back home games. So, and Ole Miss right after Auburn. So this is a tricky spot for Georgia on a tricky schedule. I know they're not going to overlook Auburn in a rivalry game. This is a big rivalry game. People do forget that outside of the South, but it's a tricky spot for Georgia. Auburn has, like I said, a bye week coming in. They will have already played road SEC games at Oklahoma and at Texas A&M. If they split those, they're going to be coming into this game with a lot of confidence, thinking that they can contend for more than just a bowl game this year. And they're going to see Georgia as an opportunity to really prove themselves. Mitch, do you know the last time Auburn knocked off Georgia?
Oh, I don't off the top of my head. It's been a little bit, hasn't it?
It's been quite a bit. It's been since November 11th, 2017 was the last time that Auburn knocked off Georgia. They rematched in the SEC championship game that year, and Georgia avenged that loss. Jarrett Stidham dropped a 40-burger on Georgia that day in Auburn.
Golly, Jarrett Stidham, man.
Stephenville's finest.
That's right.
The games in Auburn have been relatively close, though, throughout that time. It was 27-20 a couple of years ago. We remember Georgia came in ranked number 1. Auburn was, I can't remember if they had already fired. Or it was Hugh Freeze's first year. But that was the Auburn team that eventually lost to New Mexico State. They only lost to Georgia by 7 at home. 2019, same story, 21-14. It's typically a close game when this is played in Auburn. Georgia has dominated this series lately, but kind of feels like Auburn's due. I'm going to put a watch here. This could be a coming out party for Hugh Freeze and especially Jackson Arnold getting a redemption shot at Auburn.
Auburn needs a signature win or two to get them over the hump because they're recruiting well, right? Truly the only thing missing is just the results.
Might have the best
on the
wide
field.
receiver core in the SEC.
It's stacked. It is absolutely stacked. And that's even with them losing Keandre Lambert-Smith, right? So, yeah, Hugh Freeze is due, to say the least. He needs a big win. I know that there are plenty of folks down on the plains that are wondering if he doesn't get it done this year, will he ever get it done? Because it's not like the schedule gets a ton easier in the SEC, unless you're Texas.
Shots fired.
But, yeah, it takes a handout from the league office to avoid the gauntlet, right? So, yeah, this is a big prove-it year for Hugh Freeze, and knocking off Georgia would be incredible. But you're staying in the Southeastern Conference as well, and this one, you saved the most painful one for last.
Yeah, I hate this game so much. We're talking about Arkansas hosting Texas A&M, and Fayetteville is a very, very tricky place to play, Mitch. And A&M has played a lot of close games against Arkansas over the last decade plus that they've been in the same conference. I won't rehash all the scores, but if you know anything about how that rivalry's gone down in Arlington, it hasn't been a fun time for Texas A&M other than usually getting out of there with a win. Arkansas did win in 2021, but it's usually a game that takes years off of Aggie fans' life. A&M has not played in Fayetteville since 2013 when Johnny Manziel was still on the sidelines. All those close games, you could argue, would maybe have gone the other way if they had the advantage of a home crowd behind them. And for the first time again since 2013, A&M is going to have to go to Fayetteville to take on the Hogs at night. Arkansas, I don't know the prognostication for Arkansas. I haven't done enough research on them yet this year. I know they lost a ton to the transfer portal.
It's not
Taylor
great.
Green's back, and he hasn't necessarily been the most consistent player, but this is a team that can still jump up and get you, especially at home. I'll give Tennessee as an example last year, right?
Sure.
Tennessee went into Fayetteville, barely could move the ball on offense, and even with a backup quarterback for most of that game, Arkansas was able to get it done. It's also an Aggie team that has not a lot of great pedigree on the road from recent years. They finally broke that road game streak against Florida last year, but we remember what happened in weird night environments in Columbia, South Carolina, and Auburn, Alabama last year. Yep. So until proven otherwise, especially if this game is at night in Fayetteville, which you mentioned a certain team getting a lot of preferential treatment in the schedule, the time makers just love giving night games to A&M's road opponents in conference play. So until proven otherwise, I'm going to assume this is a night game, and I'm going to assume that Arkansas is probably going to be favored and walk out of this one with a win. Yeah,
that one is a game that it doesn't matter if you're predicting A&M to go 10-2 or 6-6. I'm going to be nervous about that game, right? The game's
going to be decided by less than 10 points, and something really weird is going to happen that swings it one way or the other.
Oh, I think you could say less than 7 points. And I mean, if the line is 6.5, I'm smashing the under, just because even in years when A&M was head and shoulders better than Arkansas, other than the Trevor Knight season, it's like pulling teeth to win by multiple scores. Like, we just refuse to do it. So yeah, I think that's a great pick. It's one that I think I'm going to be pacing for. There are games that my wife knows I just don't really sit down as much as she wants me to sit next to her and talk to her throughout the game. There are opponents that just doesn't really happen, and Arkansas is one of them. And now you throw in Fayetteville possibly at night. I mean, I'm going to be a basket case.
Well, Arkansas was the game where I had to stand in my kitchen for the last three quarters. Do you remember?
That's right.
2022. And I got Jimbo one of his 5 wins that year. So he can send me some of that buyout money. But just to make you a little more nervous about this one, Mitch, as a fellow Aggie.
Sick.
This game is sandwiched between a home game against Florida and a road trip to LSU. So no bye weeks in the middle.
What could go wrong there?
the first game of a stretch where A&M will not be home for an entire month. So after that Florida game, there's no home games between October 11th and November 15th. So great job, SEC schedule makers. You did fantastic work there. Going into this one, Arkansas does have a tricky game at Tennessee the week before A&M, and they go to host Auburn after A&M. So definitely not easy for Arkansas either, but definitely I would lean A&M has a tougher sandwich games there.
I can't wait for both teams to be on their third string quarterbacks and just slapping around for bowl eligibility. It's going to be a blast. As far as you standing in your kitchen, it's only weird if it doesn't work. We know this. That's just the rule down here in the South.
And speaking of weird plays, that was the game that we had the fumble recovery because KJ Jefferson was trying to extend the ball from the 4-yard line.
That's right.
And then
went Air Jordan.
The fumble was handed off to Damani Richardson.
That's right.
By I can't remember who actually recovered it, but he was getting wrapped up, and then he just kind of shoved it to Damani Richardson, and Richardson took it the last 90
They just didn't blow the whistle, and all of a sudden we were running down the sideline. Yeah, that was an interesting game. Okay, well, I love those 4 picks. Let me take you to my final 2. And
that was a warning, by the way. I don't know if that came across, but that is a warning. Get in your cellar, have a mattress over yourself in the bathtub type situation.
Yeah, that is it has touched down. It's just whether or not it's going to rip up your house or your neighbors, but it's coming for sure. We will have. We're studying the models right now. We're looking to the heavens. I'm going to put a watch on this first one. I'm going to put a watch on Payne County in Oklahoma. We're talking week 5, Baylor at Oklahoma State. Now, on paper, you may be going, Mitch, what on earth? Baylor is supposed to be a Big 12 darling. We might get the Butt Bowl in the conference championship game, which would be awesome. And Oklahoma State is typically towards the bottom of a lot of Big 12 power rankings. We're going to have a guest on the show coming up to talk about Big 12 power rankings. I don't remember if I've announced that on Twitter or not. You'll see it when it drops. Oklahoma State, though, pretty much universally in those bottom 3-4 teams heading into the year. For Baylor, though, this game is a weird trap game situation. After Arizona State and before Kansas State. So you're talking about Baylor trying to make it to the conference championship, trying to make it to the college football playoff, and sandwiched in between 2 of their biggest foes in the conference is little old Oklahoma State on the road. Say what you will about the Pokes this year and the question marks that are surrounding Mike Gundy and the roster construction. It's Haas Haney season up in Stillwater, man. And I don't know if this is Tornado Haney, if this is Hurricane Haney, but if you're Baylor, the conditions are right for an upset here. And so I think the Bears certainly going to have to mind their P's and Q's. I think if Baylor is able to limit the turnovers, if Sawyer Robertson can take care of the football, I trust Baylor's defense quite a bit, and I think that'll travel on the road. But we are absolutely monitoring this in Payne County. Like I said, it would not shock me if all of a sudden we've got a twister, coming down the highway.
Yeah, we need to call Glenn Powell and the boys to go take care of that. Fire those sensors up into the tornado. That's a Twisters reference if you haven't seen those movies. But yeah, I mean, Stillwater's a weird place to play.
It is.
Better quarterbacks than Sawyer Robertson have fallen victim to those paddles on the front row. And I've seen a lot of dreams go to die, a lot of Big 12 dreams go to die in Stillwater. So I'm here for it. Even if Gundy does not have a good team, he usually pulls 1 or 2 rabbits out of his hat.
Absolutely. Some Oklahoma State always feels like they punch above their weight. 1 or 2 home games, especially. Normally it's been like Texas coming to town, but with Texas in the SEC, they've got to find a new Big 12 opponent to upset on a bi-yearly basis, and Baylor might be that candidate this year.
Last year was Arkansas, right? Didn't they beat Arkansas at home last year?
Was that last year? That was at the beginning of last year?
It feels like that was right. Maybe like week 2. last year.
I just can't remember if that was last year or 2
Yeah, it
years
was
ago.
double overtime last year at
Wow.
Oklahoma State.
That's right, because that was the game. Didn't I tweet something about? I think I took I did. I took Arkansas to win that game.
Yeah.
Said cash the ticket in like the third quarter, and then Oklahoma State came back and dashed it all, and I got all kinds of hell on Twitter for it.
Yeah.
I do.
And
thank you for digging that up. I appreciate
we
that.
switched that game to the full screen, I think, when we were watching together because Texas and Michigan was just a bloodbath.
A blowout.
In the big house.
That's right. Y'all were at my apartment for that game.
Were?
I remember that now.
Yeah.
All right. My final pick of the night. We take you from Payne County. We're going up to Johnson County in Iowa, Trey. Not trying to do my best election night impersonation here, but Johnson County, you have a full-on warning. And this is the best kind of warning, though, because Oregon is coming to town week 11 to Kinnick Stadium, Iowa City. And this game, to me, smells like this could ruin Oregon's season. Probably more in the proverbial sense than actually with 12 teams making the playoff. Oregon could slip up and still make the postseason and compete for it all. But Iowa certainly has a chance to go on a run this year. Their schedule's not all that difficult. It's one of the softer schedules that they've had, certainly since we've gone away from the division format. I really like Iowa's chances to play just fundamentally sound defense at home against an Oregon team that will have a new quarterback. It's probably Dante Moore this year. But we just got news today, actually, just before we hit record. Evan Stewart is done for the year. He tore his patellar tendon. So that's a massive blow to the wide receiving core for the Ducks. And, listen, one doesn't simply walk into Kinnick Stadium and necessarily push around the Hawkeyes unless maybe you're Ohio State, but Oregon's not Ohio State. And so I think with the offensive improvements that we're going to see from this year at the quarterback position, we talked about that a couple weeks ago on the episode. Tim Lester's offense in the second year there in Iowa City, you know what you're going to get from the defense. To me, this has all the trademark ingredients for a big-time upset. I think Iowa's due as well. Like, Iowa's kind of puttered along. They haven't necessarily been as dangerous, whether at home or on the road. They played really ugly football, but they've honestly found the way to lose more of those tight games than they found a way to win. This year, if they get the ball rolling and you can start to sense a run at the playoff with a competent offense, this is one that I would be absolutely have on the main screen. I'd be locked in for all four quarters, and I'll be rooting for the Hawks here.
Yeah, I'm having to temper some of my personal excitement about Iowa to keep them from, being a playoff team for me in my mind, because their schedule sets up really nicely, man. Like, you got into the dock before me, but I almost put the Penn State game a few weeks before this one. That they have Penn State at home too, 3 weeks before they play Oregon. So that's a big opportunity that they're going to get at Kinnick. They get Oregon at Kinnick, like you mentioned. The toughest road game on the schedule is Iowa State in the Cyhawk, week 2.
Yeah, USC maybe at the end of the year, Nebraska maybe at the end of the year, but
the only bona fide tough team that we know right now that they're going to play on the road is Iowa State out of conference.
Yeah.
And you're right. USC and Nebraska could turn into very difficult games. Wisconsin, I think, is going to be tricky too.
Sure.
It's a tough environment, but
sure,
if you're drawing up a Big Ten schedule to make a run at a playoff appearance, this is how you would draw it up in my mind. Like, I'm really having to tap the brakes. The more I think about the upgrade at the quarterback position, the more I think about how many years in a row have we said, as long as we've had this podcast, as long as we've been watching college football as fans, we've just said, gosh, if Iowa has a competent offense,
I know
they're going to compete for a playoff spot and maybe even a national championship with that defense. So yeah, like why not this year? Why not with Gronowski coming up from the FCS level? That is a key piece for competent quarterback play and figuring it out on the defensive side of the ball like they always seem to do. So great schedule. Couldn't draw it up better if you asked them for it. My eyes are going to be on Iowa a lot this season.
Yeah, I mean, the offense, you get Reese Vanderzee back. Obviously, he was the freshman sensation at wideout last year. Your offensive line, your two deep is veterans. They've got a bunch of returners coming back. The biggest question mark to me is at the running back position. How do you replace Caleb Johnson? Iowa always seems to have at least one running back that's worth their salt. And then the defense is remarkably intact as well. They just did not have to go out and make a bunch of changes, make a bunch of replacements across the whole roster. And so year 2 of Tim Lester, you get a bunch of your games at home. You avoid Ohio State, you avoid Michigan, you avoid Illinois. Indiana's at home, Penn State's at home. Yeah, this just feels like, man, if not now, when?
I'm going to look up right now, do some live radio. If you want to stall for me for just a second, I need to know the Iowa playoff odds. So give me just a second. I'll pull that up.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think, and I guess I'll pull up Oregon's schedule, because Oregon coming into this game, let's see here. They're going to be off a bye week, which is as advantageous for the Ducks as it can possibly be. They'll have just gone through at Penn State, by Indiana, at Rutgers, home against Wisconsin for their homecoming. So, they've certainly got to go through a couple of pretty salty teams there. I think that's 3 out of 4 that absolutely you could drop a game to. And so I think the question for me is, what is the state of Oregon coming in? Yes, they're going to have the bye week, but have they dropped a game already? Did they lose to Penn State? You got your whiteout for that game. That is officially confirmed.
Oh,
so
yeah.
is this a one-loss Oregon team?
I'm so happy that gamble paid off on my hypothetical road trip.
Really, really, really astute guess there. Yeah. How many losses does Oregon bring into this game? Is a big question for me. So back to you.
Plus 730 on the old FanDuel Sportsbook right now to make the playoff. I might have to drop some shekels on that. And that seems like, with that schedule, that seems like really, really good odds just to make the college football playoff. I know I was kind of high on the Nebraska line last year, and that didn't materialize.
Didn't go so
well. But 720, that's pretty good.
But it felt like we had more questions about Nebraska as a team last year than we do about Iowa so far, right? Like Nebraska's projection was more solely based off the schedule and the acumen of the head coach than it was, here's what their roster looks like. For me, it feels like you've got all of that plus a lot of confidence surrounding the Jimmies and the Joes on the field for the Hawkeyes.
And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because we will obviously have a big Big Ten preview, but Dante Moore at Oregon, are we just going to just pretend like his UCLA tenure didn't happen and we're just going to pretend like he's the next great Oregon quarterback just because he's putting on an Oregon jersey? We got to see it before we anoint him, right? And we haven't seen him perform. I know he has a ton of recruiting pedigree. I know that he has a lot of raw talent, but we haven't seen that transformed into actual production on a college football field yet. So we got to see that before I'm back in on Oregon going back to the Big Ten championship.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think to that point, I kind of lump, and this may be unfair to Dante Moore, but I kind of lump Moore, Jaden Rashada, and Malachi Nelson all into the same group. Like, super high 5-star recruit. What have you done though? Like, what have you shown on the field? In Nelson's case, he hadn't done anything. Rashada's case, he hadn't done anything. Moore at least has played at UCLA and showed some flashes, right? But yeah, to just say that Oregon's going to run it right back and capitalize, I think they're going to have a really good defense again. But to say that they're just going to capitalize on it and, maybe even be undefeated coming into Kinnick Stadium, that feels like maybe a bridge too far for me here in June. So, especially
going from having a 6-year quarterback last year to a guy that really hasn't played a lot of college football.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, there you go. Like we said off the top, we're just your weather guy here in this edition of the 3 Technique. Let us know. Write in. which upset picks you like. Would you change our advisory, watch, warning? What would you put on them as far as a grade goes? And then, as I mentioned, if you like this style of episode, if you want to talk more about upsets, we have a run sheet of like 30 games. So I think those are going to probably materialize more as tweets than maybe other episodes, mostly because our run sheet all the way to week 0 is absolutely jam-packed. We're going to multiple episodes a week. In fact, the next time you hear from us, so this one is coming out Friday morning. Trey and Garrett are going to record a episode to start next week, and then we start this run of guests, previews, projections. Preview season goes into full swing. So multiple episodes each week. We'll go to 3 episodes a week there for a little bit as we're getting through all the conference previews. It's going to be nuts. If you love college football content, make sure you're subscribed, following on YouTube, our Substack as well. We've just got quite a bit of content coming your way. And man, we've been working hard. We've been grinding in the research. We've been writing a ton. We've been putting together a lot of run sheets. So we're going to get a bunch of guests on the show as well. So a good time to be a subscriber for sure at 3Tech HQ. But for Trey Reeves, I'm Mitch Mason. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Let us know what your forecast is for these upset picks. And until next time, so long, everybody.
Gracious. Yep.